What actually was the fate of Ophelia? Well, okay, she did drown herself, but how she got there is pretty complex. Hello, I'm Dr. Freddie Harris Ramsby. My students call me Dr. Freddie. I run the first year writing program here at Bloomfield College, and I teach theatre in practice. Ooh, okay, so this question says, in very beautiful font, by the way, gosh, what actually was the fate of Ophelia? It really depends on the production. In Shakespeare's day, there were no directors. You had about 3 minutes to put up a play. You had to stick to the text to figure out how you were going to perform the piece. Nobody had anybody else's lines. That's where we get the word part from, because you only had your own. Nobody actually knew what was going on in the plays in Shakespeare's time, except what he handed them in the script. So Ophelia's fate is quite simple. As I said, she drowned. But how she gets there is really a massive matter of interpretation. One of my favorite things to do when I see Hamlets, I've seen 3,000 million bajillion Hamlets, is look for the very first interaction between Ophelia and Hamlet. So Hamlet is this young, sort of tortured soul whose father is killed by his uncle. And it's clear that something has been going on with him and Ophelia, who is the daughter of a nobleman called Polonius and the sister of a guy called Laertes. And so in the second scene in the play, Act 1, Scene 2, it says a whole bunch of people come into the courtroom. So if she comes into the court in that scene, in Act 1, Scene 2, she hasn't got any lines, and it's not actually in the stage directions for this. You can tell a really brilliant story about their relationship if she comes in. Right? Because you could establish that relationship off the page. That is, I think, the most interesting part about this play, because essentially it's a family drama. For me, it's a family drama, and it's about relationships. If they come on in that first scene and they're kind of giving each other, you know, mushy looks, or if he ignores her, that's also really telling, because you're telling the story right off the bat. So then what happens is that in a later scene, her dad and her brother are being really bossy, and they're saying, don't mess around with Hamlet. He's above your station. He's going to break your heart, and don't give him any more of your time. And then it all just goes to pot. And there's a famous scene where it's called the Get Thee to a Nunnery scene, where Hamlet appears to be really horrible to her. He's like, women suck. You've made a mess out of me, yada, yada, yada. So there's one interpretation where Hamlet knows that the king and the uncle, Polonius, Ophelia's father, are hiding. So they're sort of in it together. They're having this fake fight, right? I've seen that, and that's lovely. And the reason that's lovely, and why it makes sense to me that they were deeply, deeply in love, they just got messed with by politicking and the horrible uncle who killed the father, married the mother, da-da-da. It makes sense to me because when she dies, she drowns herself. She goes, quote unquote, mad. And she sings some really bawdy songs while she's sort of walking around in a nightie and smelling flowers. And she's like, this one is for this and this one is for that. Da, da, da. And then she drowns herself. Well, Hamlet's been shipped off to England because Claudius wants to, but he gets the better of the people who are going to him. And he finds out that Ophelia is dead, and he jumps in her grave. And he says, I loved Ophelia. 40,000 brothers could not, with all their quantity of love, make up my sum, right? So he's kind of squabbling with Laertes, and they're both kind of, it's really interesting theatre, they're sort of squabbling in her grave. So that line, he's professing how much he loved her. So it makes absolutely no sense to me if, at the beginning of the play, he's being a total bad word to her. Obviously, the fate of Ophelia in the Taylor Swift song is to do with the fact that Travis What's-His-Chops has saved Taylor Swift from Ophelia's fate, which is drowning herself. And she starts the video, I saw the video, and she's lying in this sort of bath or something, or some water, some body of water. And that's a reminiscent of this painting by Millet. Ophelia is lying in this sort of beautiful white gown with flowers, and it's clear that she's drowned, and she looks very tragic and beautiful and serene. And so clearly Swift is saying, oh, Travis, my football player, has saved me from that fate, you know, drowning for love, killing myself for love. It's quite controversial. And in fact, my students, we watched the video. We watched the video because I told them about this and they're like, ooh, let's watch it. I love that she's alluding to Shakespeare because then maybe more people will read it, which is great. I mean, there's so much in there. And that Hamlet-Ophelia relationship is a little bit more complex than Taylor Swift alludes to. But if she gets people to talk about it and read about it and study Shakespeare, then I'm in. I teach theatre here at Bloomfield. I teach a class called Theatre in Practice. No experience needed, but we read all kinds of fabulous plays, and each year there's a different theme. And last year the theme was canonical plays and contemporary plays that talk back to them, and we actually studied Hamlet. But this year we're looking at a bunch of different plays about what America means to me, so from a bunch of diverse playwrights. And the best part about it, even if you don't have any kind of theatrical background, is that we are going to produce an evening of theatre, but we will do it with maybe actors from Montclair. I'm bringing in a playwright to help students work on their monologues for this night. So you can hear your stuff read aloud. We're going to open it up to the larger campus community, so it'll be more of a community event. So it's really fun. I think it's my most favorite thing to teach is theatre. Because it's just great. It's on Wednesday nights, so if we do a performance, it'll be in the evening, and you'll get credit for it. So come take theatre in practice with me.